Let's kick it off. I'm here with Jamie Jackson of The Guardian. I've seen you've just been speaking to Steve in the 1958.
Yes.
Just want to get your views as a journalist. You're quite outspoken, which I respect. You've always kind of said what you feel and what the fans think. So just quickly, 20 years on the Glazers, what do you say about that to begin with?
Well, I mean, it's probably the best thing that ever happened to all the other Premier League clubs and the continental top clubs, them coming in, because of the amount of money that they're taking out of the club could have been spent on transfers, basically. And then you could have been looking at a squad like Real Madrid. You know what I mean? Why can't Mbappe play here? You know, because of the amount of money they generate anyway. So it's been not a killer for United, because Manchester United is so big, but you understand what I'm getting at.
Handicap, right?
A real shame in a way, because it was undeserved.
And like, even just quickly on this place, I look at it and I think, I get the new project with INEOS, but just like move that fucking railway line and raise the south down. Let's have get that done, and then look at the big new stadium.
It's very interesting you say that. When Andy Burnham came to see us, when we launched the stadium, I actually said to him, gave him a bit of a grilling about it. That's what I said. Because he mentioned that. I said, that's a railway station. You can move that.
That's got to be moved. That's the key to anything, right?
If you really want to.
Exactly.
It just came across a bit of an excuse, a reason. You know what I mean? A reason not to sort of
do
what should be done.
Okay, and just very quickly on Jim Ratcliffe, what change do you see in the last 2 years? Because me as a fan, it's been a total car crash.
Well, it's kind of like what Steve just said. It's got worse, I think. I mean, you've had the Ten Hag thing where they nearly sacked him and didn't, then sacked him. Dan Ashworth leaving, and now the Amorim thing where he was never going to suit them.
Let's kick it off. I'm Steve, and I'm joined by Ash and Jamie Jackson from The Guardian. So, Jamie, thank you very much for joining. I think I met you for the first time down Sir Matt Busby Way on the weekend. I saw you talking to Steve of the 1958, who were obviously organising the protest. And he was so kind, I just kind of pulled you afterwards and you gave me a little 1 minute interview. And I actually want to start by talking about the protest, because other podcasts, have put it towards the back end, or certain media channels, we won't name them, Sky, haven't covered it. I just want to know, what has drawn you to kind of reporting on the protest, because you don't have to.
Yeah, I mean, I've done a little bit with them, because when they did the joint thing with FC United at their stadium, their ground last year, I went and did that story then, reported on the sort of joint action. There was stuff outside, and they went to the sort of one of the bars behind the one of the stands in FC United's. Listen, I think it's a very interesting and worthy. It's a very interesting story and a very worthy cause. I think there's a lot to be said for what Steve's saying, and maybe you two gentlemen would agree, and maybe lots of fans that, let's just say specifically Old Trafford, the stadium. I mean, I was looking at it again when we met, actually, on Sunday, and it's surrounded by streets, houses, yes. It's great. It's right in the middle of a neighbourhood. It's not like sort of out in the middle of you know what I mean, like a custom built. And there's nothing wrong with that necessarily, but if you've got a stadium that's been there since 1910, I think it is, that is kind of organic, and as I say, surrounded by a normal neighbourhood, and I think that's amazing. And so there's a lot to be said for keeping that. Now, they might argue, well, the stadium's actually moving location. You still have that. But what Steve was getting at was, you've got the Munich tunnel. Obviously, sadly, I think it's the 68th or 69th anniversary very shortly of that horrible tragedy. You've also got that pitch. I know it's changed, what do you call it, orientation, but that grass has basically had,
George Best and
on it, Rooney, Ronaldo, Bobby Charlton, the Busby Bay, Billy Meredith, I think, unless I've got my dates wrong on here, he might have predated it. But you understand what I'm saying? You can actually look at that and imagine that. And actually, when Eric Ten Hag was the manager, I wrote a prose poetry account of his first season, charged with Contreras. So I was doing it as the weeks went on, and one of the things that struck me was about that pitch, that stadium. And it was the same as when I did a biography of Solskjaer. I looked into the stadium. It was really interesting. So that's just specifically about the stadium. Then if you broaden it out to kind of what the 1958, what that's part of, which is basically they want the Glazers out and Sir Jim Ratcliffe. I can completely see. I'm not a fan, but I am a fan of kind of what's right or wrong, hopefully.
Yeah.
It doesn't sit particularly right, I think, with anyone. Listen, I get that United are the most successful club in the land, and so anyone, there's the whole thing, if you don't support United, then you want them to lose. But I think if you've got half a sensible head on you, if you're a football person, right, you don't care who you support, you don't want to see this grand institution, this storied football club, which has so many amazing players, is an absolute, it's like a sort of Hollywood dream factory of sporting stories, ups and downs. You don't want that to be sort of like torn apart. No one wants that because, it's part of, without Manchester United, you wouldn't have had, the rivals with Arsenal or Liverpool and all,
Yeah.
I've got lots of friends who are Liverpool fans, and deep down they respect United. They never admit it. Of course they do.
Yeah.
Why would they not? Why would they not?
Same the other way, Jamie.
Exactly. There you go. You want to beat them, but at the same time, you can almost, it's like Borg and McEnroe in tennis. Or, you know what I mean? You want. So, I completely respect and understand. And that's why the FC United thing was interesting, because obviously that was a splinter group. Sorry, not a splinter club, but a club which was formed because when Malcolm Glazer bought the club in 2005, straight away, these people, some of whom are still there actually, said, right, we've had enough of this. So yeah, I mean, I can relate to it, and it's interesting to see where they go next with it, because on the one hand, I think they would say, and they have said, that who knows whether it will work, but there's what will work and what will work. It's still making a stance. It's still, I think there's something to be said for, even if you don't get like the Glazers and Ratcliffe out, I think there's something to be said for like making a stance and say, this is what we believe in, we're going to follow it through. And I think that's a really good thing to be in life. Yes. Sometimes the win is just doing that. Yeah. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. Because we've had criticism like within even our own community, which is literally about 20, 30 United fans. We've got like a hardcore community within WhatsApp, and even a couple of them have been quite critical about Sunday and saying, "Oh, what's a March going to do?" As in on its own, which I think everyone understands. But I think the idea is that will then build towards something bigger, and that may not happen. But I think that's the idea. So I think, like you said, you could sit back and just complain, or you could get involved, right? Is that the way you see it?
Yeah, 100%. And, they're getting good numbers. It's difficult because I don't know how many it is, but, not every fan who comes on a particular match day is a sort of like you two, die-hard, season ticket. They might just be there for that one game or a couple of... That's what I mean. So I understand that. But what is the heart and soul of a football club if it's not the fans? It really, I mean, this is a cliche because it's true. Is that quote, without fans, football is nothing. I'd suggest, I was lucky enough, even though it's difficult circumstances, I was lucky enough to be able to go and still report on football games during COVID. Yeah, I was privileged to be able to do that. People obviously were sort of stuck in the houses, and I was at the stadiums, all the time for United and City games, and I love being there, for the football. But you really saw without fans, wow, it's like a sort of almost like a ghost sport. So, despite the fact that the fan base can be fragmented or they've got different interests, you've still got a hardcore or the soul of the club who, the people from 1958, maybe a bit like you two gentlemen, I don't know, I don't know, but, they had parents and grandparents, who supported United. It is their church, or their sort of, it's family for them. So, I would never, ever dismiss anyone who believes in anything, as long as they're doing it the right way, sort of, standing up for it. I mean, surely, don't want to go too deep, but what is life about if it's not about sort of having
we can go deep, Jamie.
About?
We can go deep.
Yeah.
This
is an unfiltered pod, Jamie.
We like going deep.
So if you care about something, and you love it, then that in itself is a beautiful thing. Turn up if it's about protesting against your football club that you love. I mean, it's an amazing thing, really. I don't know. I just wonder if the Glazers and Ratcliffe, if you could actually get them in a room, or not even just once, but have an ongoing sort
dialogue,
relationship, or discussion with them, whether they might actually start to feel what it really matters, because they might think they understand what it means to be a fan, but unless you're a sort of live and breathe it, which I don't. I'm not a fan, don't get me wrong, but my son's son, he is. He's 14. He loves them. He just does. He loves United, and so I can see it for him. And so what I'm saying is I think there's something worth fighting for. So as I said earlier, sometimes you can lose something, but you've actually won because you made a stance, and I think that's what the 1958 are about for me. Yes, they're winning by the very fact that they're there doing this. You could be one person doing it. It's still is, for me anyway, still as worthy or as worthwhile and as beautiful, because you've got that sort of commitment.
Well, it's protesting in general, right? Whether it's politics or football, it starts with one and it grows from there normally, right? So you aren't going against the masses, and you've touched on it. There is obviously a divide when it is this subject as well, which is a shame. But I just wanted to quickly touch on the point you mentioned about, getting the Glazers or Jim in a room with the fans. They tried that right after Super League in terms of like they had I think it was like a biannual fans forum with Joel Glazer. I think maybe once or twice they like met, and it was on Zoom as well. But obviously that died a death, right? In terms of like the interaction after maybe 21 or 22, I think it was when they did that. And I think that's another reason why Steve and the 58 are doing what they're doing, right? Well, we're fed up with the Glazers already, and now it's INEOS's turn to be, just as inept as the Glazers when it comes to running this magnificent football club, like you've touched upon.
Yeah, and Ash, like we should like let Jamie know that the early days of this pod, so like a year ago. So it goes back to when the whole INEOS Qatar thing was going on. Between supporters, again, we were divided, right, as in who we wanted to take the club forward. So,
especially in this fan
yeah,
group.
So just for your context, Jamie, like Ash was back in INEOS. I wanted Qatar because I wanted the full buyout. But obviously, once Jim, does the deal, gets into the club, everyone tries to get a bit hopeful. I think even Steve from the 58 said, we tried to give him a chance. You want something to believe in. But very early on, we started seeing questionable decision making. And I've heard you speak about it on other channels. Like, goes back to the way they dealt with Ten Hag, which I want to touch on, because I think your colleague, is it Jacob Steinberg, wrote a very interesting piece pre-FA Cup final that Ten Hag was going to be sacked regardless of the result. So I just want to dive into there, actually, because this is when my alarm bells started going off. And this is only 6 months after the deal was confirmed. I think it was December 2023. It was Christmas Eve, wasn't it? December 23. They announced the deal. So kind of going into that new year, it's the very early stages of INEOS's management, and we know they had full control of football. So I want to know, like, what you think in terms of the way they handled those couple of weeks before the cup final, because we got battered 4-0 by Palace away. I remember that. And I remember thinking, this is done. I think a lot of fans were thinking that. And then I think clearly what's happened, you correct me if I'm wrong because you've got the sources, the club started speaking to other managers because they thought Ten Hag was done. Your colleague has obviously got wind of it, so you've gone with the story. So just, if you can rewind back to that point, tell us what you were hearing from the inside circle and what you made of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think characterize it kind of perfectly, and that's why I mentioned it when we chatted on Sunday. So they basically wanted to sack him, yes, and I think so. They interviewed a lot of people at the time. Ashworth wasn't in there because he was still in gardening league, still on gardening.
That's it.
It was Jason Wilcox drove it. So, for example, I think the one they really wanted was Tuchel. Yeah. And he got so close that they met him in Monaco, and I think he basically said no to them. And I think that's kind of what saved Ten Hag at that moment. Yes. But yeah, I mean, you name it. I mean, they sounded out. People like Gary O'Neill, they even sounded out. Yes.
Yeah.
The former Wolves manager. Yeah.
Thomas Frank,
yeah,
we've heard. Is it
Marco Silva. Ruben, it was even... they spoke to him, didn't they? And at that time, they actually said no because he plays a back three.
Yeah, I mean, that was Liverpool's sort of rejection of him as well. So they did this whole thing, which was kind of, because of people like me, kind of played out in public. It was reported on, obviously. And Ten Hag's not stupid. And then you get to the final. I don't know if you two
we were there. We were there.
Yeah. You must have loved that, right? I mean, I was there. I mean,
great day.
Played really well.
Brilliant day.
Probably the best you played until this last derby win under Carrick, right? Yeah. Recently. Mainu scored the winner, didn't he? Yeah, Garnacho the first. Yeah, Mainu. Yeah,
that's it. That's it. Yeah.
Just a quick aside: when Mainu was ridiculously dropped by Amorim, I kept on hearing this stuff about Mainu's not too mobile and he hasn't got the legs. And I'm thinking, what about that goal he scored in the FA Cup final? We basically sprinted the whole. That was a back to front move, wasn't it? Started by Rashford.
Yeah.
He made the big run into the area. And anyway. That's a bit of an aside. So yeah, they did all that. Decided not to sack him. Then they had this sort of powwow in Ibiza when he was on holiday, I think, when they sort of decided, they were going to patch up or whatever. Spent all that money, in the summer. It was an open secret. They kind of wanted to get rid of him. And then they keep him. And then, I actually did a story. I think it was the week after you lost to Liverpool on the Sunday at home.
3-0, was it?
He doesn't.
We were there.
Right, yeah. So it's basically the story was if Ten Hag doesn't sort of what was the phrase used to be? Sort of like address his game model. Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
It could be out. Now, surely they knew what his game model was when they employed him initially, or when they were thinking to get rid of him and all the rest of it. And anyway, he was gone about 3 weeks after that.
Yeah.
And
Jamie, I've got a quick question on that Liverpool game. Did you do the interview with Omar Barada and Jason Wilcox before that game? Were you there? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is interesting. So yeah, that was about 12 o'clock in one of the boardrooms at
Yes. Yeah.
Trafford. Yeah. And in that, I was going to mention this, in that sort of sit down, it was with my other sort of newspaper colleagues. They went on the record, I think it was Ashworth who said it, basically backing Ten Hag to the hilt.
Yes.
So we did that. Now, I happened to be off the next 2 days, and the next time I came back to work was when I just did that story, sort of saying that he's going to be sacked. Let's just say that the club weren't happy because you've gone from Ashworth on the record, or Barad, I can't remember which one it was, saying in that sit down, yeah, he's our man. And then I'd done a story, basically going to sack him 2 days later. And it turned out to be correct because, how can I say this? It was an interesting move to talk to us. Sort of, 2 or 3 hours before you're playing your big rivals at home, because if you lose,
exactly.
The story we did wasn't going to be published till the next day anyway, so it was a little bit sort of hostage to fortune. When you did lose, I can't remember what the score was in that game. Was it
3-0?
It was 3-0. But we went to the game, and I remember some of the quotes started floating about. Maybe even an hour before kickoff about he's our man. Yeah, like you said, gameplay or whatever the phrase was. So it's bringing back bad memories. But yeah, it was all true. Yeah,
that was the first big, let's say, misstep. I'm being polite, and then was it early December or Ashworth goes right.
Ashworth,
I can't remember the game, but it was at Old Trafford. And
Newcastle, right. I think
so what happened was, after the game, we're in the press room, which is sort of under, I don't know if you know where the directors sit, but it's kind of underneath there.
South stand, isn't it? Yeah.
And I didn't know at the time, but looking back, we then did realise a sort of ashen-faced Ashworth walked through our room, because where the boardroom is you go next to, you can exit via our media room, where you speak to managers. And I think he'd just been told then that he was on the way out. But that was basically because he didn't think Amorim was a particularly good appointment.
Yeah,
he was proved right.
So can we pick up on that, Jamie? Right, because there's two things that I want to talk about. So after Ruben was signed, there was massive reporting from you and all the mainstream media about the fact that Omar Barada wanted his name associated with this. And then as soon as he was fired, there was a backtrack, coincidentally, to say, oh, Omar wasn't as involved as has been made out. Tell us, what's the truth?
Well, but Barada, let me get this right. He was involved because he was at the club properly, wasn't he? Came in
summer 24, I think.
Pretty sure. It was a his and Wilcox appointment, basically. Well, at the time Ashworth was there, but Ashworth, as I say, I don't think he was particularly keen because of the system, I think. And I think Ratcliffe outvoted him, or he out. What do you call it?
You didn't like the alternative list, right?
Can I ask? Because you obviously cover Man City as well. From what we heard as well, is that Man City were looking at Ruben quite, heavily, and obviously Omar's been plucked out of City into United. So I always felt he stole City's homework and just kind of went for him on that basis.
It may well be an element of that. I mean, that's kind of what Guardian League is about, isn't it? Supposedly, sort of stops. If you go to a rival, whatever, straight away, sort of taking ideas or projects.
I
mean, I happened to do the game in which his Sporting whooped Manchester City 5-2, was it? Or something, in Lisbon, right? And that was, I can't remember. Was he already going to be the manager?
Yeah,
there?
he was.
He was already going to be.
It was confirmed.
I saw that. Yeah, but of course, what we didn't know was that was kind of the start, or towards the start of City having a real big free fall. If you remember last season, in that period. But you looked at that and you thought, wow, this guy. But for me, the biggest thing. And I've just touched on it before, and you can go back and see all the questions asked. But the biggest thing that said to me, he's not right for United, was this dropping of Mainoo. I could not understand it. Amorim, what are you doing?
Yeah.
This guy at 18, 19 started the European Championship final for England, right? In central midfield. You've got to be some player to do that, right? I don't care, and he's gone from that to being dropped and, is he a 10? Is he a centre foot? Is he a false 9? I don't really think, and I'm just thinking,
100%.
And then, just to fast forward, he comes back in his first game back in. It's a derby, and how did he play in that game? Unbelievable! This kid
covered the most distance in any Premier League game this season.
But apparently, he hasn't got legs for central midfield.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, we had heated debates about Cobby. I was like really like on your side there about why is Cobby not on the team. So yeah, within the fan base, obviously, that was going on as well.
Jamie, just quickly back to Ten Hag.
Yes.
There's one notion that everyone talks about when it comes to INEOS with the FA Cup final. Like, without putting words in your mouth, do you think INEOS bottled it because they won the FA Cup final?
You're going to blame your colleague Andy Mitten with his poll, his 84%?
Did he bottle it? I really don't know. It's a really good question. Possibly. I mean, Jacob Steinberg's a very, very good reporter, yes. He would not have done that story without him being told from sort of, top sources, etc., etc.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it changed.
I think it changed for sure, Jamie. Surely, like, it's pre-cup final, they were pretty much decided they're going to sack him. Let's not forget, no one was expecting us to win that final, including us, the fans. So they'd obviously done their planning, and they clearly changed because they had the 2-week review period, didn't they, after the final, where they didn't make the call. So I think clearly they've changed their mind. And I always said, Ash, you can back me up on this, in our group chat, I always said that Jacob Steinberg story was true. And they've then changed their mind. So
yeah, and to be fair, like, look, Jacob Steinberg does a lot of reporting for Chelsea and stuff like that. Normally he's on the money. So I think at the time when he reported it, which I think was the Thursday or Friday before the cup final, that was what happened. And Jamie, as a journalist, you can report something on the day, and then football changes. It's the craziest industry in the world, right?
You know what? That is a really prescient thing to say. When I sometimes get kindly asked to go and sort of talk to students who are doing sports journalism, say undergraduate.
Nice. Yeah.
But when I talk about football transfers, I always say what you just said then, Ash. Something could be true, yes, at 5 o'clock, say on a Friday, and by 5:05 on Friday, it could be untrue, but no one's lied, or it hasn't, it's not like you make up, it's something, that's where you got, that's why it's so, and actually that's one reason why managers / clubs don't like to talk about players, they're wanting to sign, because it can look really silly. So you're completely right what you're saying there. It does change. It's very, very difficult. It's probably the trickiest thing to report on is stuff to do with either football managers' jobs or player signings.
This podcast is sponsored by Go Play Sports, the brand new mobile app changing the game for grassroots. Whether it's Sunday League or five-a-side, Go Play Sports makes it easy to track attendance, manage teams, and cut out the manual admin. No more endless group chats, no more chasing payments, just turn up and play. Go Play Sports. Download now from your app store.
So I want to just very quickly hone back in on the Ashworth thing, because I know it gets talked about a lot, right? The fact that they courted him for however many months. They then, got him out of Newcastle, paid the compensation to get him, waited for the gardening leave. Then obviously after 2-3 months at the club, he's then leaves, chemistry issue according to Jim Ratcliffe. So I know this headline gets talked about a lot, but I really want to hone in on it because, again, going back to my concerns as a fan, we've had the Ten Hag debacle. That's one thing. The Ashworth one really, really worried me because, and again, Ash will back me up here, even pre-INEOS, I always said, and a lot of people said, Manchester United need a world-class director of football. I think that was said by many fans, many journalists even. That was clear as day. So when INEOS came in and announced, we've gone and got Ashworth, one of the best in the country, England, Brighton, Newcastle, I was like, okay, I can buy into this. And I didn't want INEOS in to begin with. I was like, okay, fair enough. They've gone and got the best. They then get him in. And then, I'm sorry, again, I don't know things as well as you do, but for me, it's pretty clear Jim Ratcliffe is making football decisions. I know he leans on Wilcox quite a lot and Barada, but for me, they got Ashworth in position and then didn't listen to him. So why would you go and hire someone in that position and not listen to him? Is that fair, Jamie, the way I'm reading it?
Yeah, and it's fair, and so how I would describe what you fairly describe, or the sort of thought process baffling. It's a little bit like, and I could sort of see Amorim's argument here, even though he wasn't the right man for the head coach of United. Him saying, "What in essence, why should I listen to Wilcox? I'm the manager," as he said he was. So and I live or die by my decisions, and that so and I got that, and that's kind of the same with Ashworth. Why'd you get this guy in? Who, I thought that was a smart appointment. And actually, I know him a little bit. I don't know him, but I've come into, through work, I know him a little bit. I remember him at the FA. I think he was a good hire. Yes. I think
that's what I thought.
I think, he's very good at,
He's measured. He comes across measured, calm,
organised.
Yeah, and he had a lot of experience. You just mentioned it there. 2 or 3 major clubs plus England. He knew what he was doing. He was with Southgate at England. Same sort of time. When Southgate was under 21 for coach, etc. So that after the Ten Hag thing, you start to think, listen, you can make mistakes in any walk of life. It's not about making mistakes. It's not about not making mistakes. That's fine. That's absolutely fair. Especially if you sort of try to be ambitious and try to do something the right way. But that was to Ten Hag, I thought the Ten Hag thing we discussed was a bit of a farce, right?
Yeah.
But okay. But then you had this a month later, and and then Amorim even said to them he didn't want to come in mid-season. Listen, I don't necessarily think he should have waited until the summer, but this 3-4-3 thing, and then.
Out of interest, were there any other names that they talked to? Like seriously, or was it just pretty much Ruben?
I think he was the only one who saw.
They had him ready to go, didn't they? Because as soon as Ten Hag got sacked, within 48 hours, they were flying out to Lisbon.
There were people on the list, but it might be the same sort of people they would return to, like Frank, for example, if that hadn't worked. But I'm pretty sure Amorim was there. And at the time, you thought, what was he, 39 at the time, I think? Still a very young man.
Yeah.
I think, even though Benfica was his team as a player, I think it was, when he went to Sporting, they hadn't won the league for a long time, and he won it twice in the bounds, which is the first time they'd done that there. Sporting had done it since the 50s, I think. But, this is not a disrespect thing, but the Portuguese league is not the Premier League, yes? It's a bit like, like Moyes managing Everton and going to United is different managing United. Without wanting to sound, I don't want to sound vain, but reporting on Manchester United is different to, say, reporting on Portsmouth, which is what I did before I got this job. It's a whole... You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
well, it's just not you, Jamie. Like, I listened to an interview with Ian Graham, right? Famous Liverpool analyst. He even said, like, he was surprised United went for Ruben because of the squad profile. So you're one of many in terms of the mainstream media and fans like me and Steve saying, like, okay, he probably is a really good manager. But it really, for this club, in terms of the squad we've got, and the profile, to your point.
Yeah, I mean because I was just saying that I'm thinking about this 3-4-3, and on the one hand, I'm thinking United don't play 3-4-3; they play however you want to call it, 4-4-2 or 4-4-1 or 4, But then you looked at the Sporting team, and it was quite attacking, and they had these two. I can't remember. There was one guy particularly, and these two fast wing backs, and I sort of thought, okay. If he comes to United and plays his sort of fast, hurtling, almost like wingers, even though the wing backs, sort of 3-4-3.
Energetic,
United fans might, warm to that. Okay, this is the sort of attack United way, but it just wasn't really there. You did have an upturn, obviously, this season with more goals, but I can't remember what it was last season. You just couldn't score any goals, and, it was just...
Oh, yeah.
It was a little...
Tried to forget last season, Jamie, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned before in Bilbao, I obviously did the semi-final, and the final was an awful game of football, wasn't it? I mean, it was just, you lost to Spurs.
Yeah,
it was just
terrible.
He fell out with people like Garnacho, who you would have thought would have been ideal for an attacking 3-4-3, sort of a winger. I don't know. It was just, the whole thing was a little bit... And what really struck me as someone who's reports on United, and, obviously City, and is always watching football, luckily enough, for a living. The very first game after he left, it was Burnley away, right? And Fletcher was the manager, or whatever they call interim. And you played 4-2-3-1, and you saw Bruno Fernandes in his number 10 position. It was like, wow, has the last 18 months really happened? With Amorim, because here it was, what he was seeing, and it just sort of looked so much more, I don't know. And this whole thing, And I hammered away at him on this as well, Amorim. This whole thing, like, I'm 3-4-3. Not even the Pope
Yeah.
can make me check. As if it was
Yeah.
a badge of honor. Do you know what? Right? He
Yeah.
would say, if I change your ways because of if I've changed my ways and it looks like the media have made me do it, then what are the players going to think
Yeah.
about it? Now, I never said this to
Yeah.
him, but what I would have said was, I understand what you're saying, but do you not think it's a position of strength sometimes, Ruben, to be able to say to your players, maybe I've got this a little bit wrong. We're going to go this way now. Just because you know what I mean. Again, that's
Yeah.
you don't always have to be right to sort of persuade people.
Yeah.
Sometimes admitting you're wrong gains you more respect, right?
I think that's the problem, Jamie. Like, you touched on Ruben's age. I'm actually born 2 weeks before him, right? So I really empathize in terms of like what it's like to be in a job like that, in terms of like, can you imagine being 39 going to like you described as like a Hollywood football club, and to me the job was too big for him. Even the cameras on him, he
100%.
just said stuff like you would never say. Like, I remember after the Ipswich game, he got rudely interrupted by Ed Sheeran shaking Jamie Redknapp's hand, but he told the presenter like, oh, like all these interviews during the week. It's like, what did you expect? It's Manchester United, to use the Gary Neville line. And then just repeatedly, like, he made headlines for you guys without even really you guys didn't really have to dig that deep.
What was the heated exchange you had with him, Jamie, like in the last month or so? There was a specific quote that surfaced, but I think it was you that asked the question. You have to remind me.
So this is related to Manu, right? So what happened, right?
Right.
And this is kind of where how can I say this? I don't want to sound big-headed, but part of being a journalist is being observant and maybe sometimes picking up on something which maybe is not that day's top story because something else on that day is more. But you store it away. So what happened was, on Christmas Eve, he did a press conference ahead of the Newcastle game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in that press conference, he said Kobbie Mainoo is the future of Manchester United. So that was the top line of that day because, Mainoo had been dropped and, I don't think he started him in the Premier League, and he was saying this was like a sea change. But he also said towards the end, I may have to of this press conference on Christmas Eve, I may have to change my 3-4-3 because I'm starting to realise.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
that I can no longer get the big players or something like that needed for it.
Yeah.
I came
and the
out
money
of there
to get the team. Yeah.
Yes, I came out of there and I said to my desk, Mainoo's the main story, but that quote is interesting, right? I'm going to return to it with him the next time. And if you look on my X feed, before the next game, so you had Newcastle on the Boxing Day, yeah, but he actually did play a 4-2-3 one there, if you remember.
Yeah.
And then the next game was Leeds on the Sunday, and there's a press conference on the Friday. Now, if you look on my X timeline, before that press conference, I don't know what day it was. It might have been Christmas Day, it might have been the Boxing Day, but at some point, I mentioned this quote, and I said, "This is odd. Did he not know this a year ago? Yeah, when he first got the job, that he wouldn't have the money for this 3-4-3 thing." So I went into that press conference on the Friday, and I had 3 stabs at it. First 2 times, he said, I said to him, "You said this on Christmas Eve. Were you not aware of this a year ago? I don't want to talk about it." And I never got it. Then the third time, I said,
that was it.
The thing is, people looking at this might think it's a bit strange because surely you should have been aware of this a year ago. And then I said, this is what triggered him. I said, has someone talked to you about a change in budget? Maybe Jason Wilcox. And that's when he couldn't resist any longer. And he sort of said, you are very smart. And this goes back
That's
to
it.
what
he called you clever. That was
You're
to
a
you.
smart guy.
Yes, that was it.
But if anything, he should have said I'm a genius. But I'll let that one pass. I'm joking. But it goes to what you were just saying then, Steve. And Ash, he tried his best not to say anything, but when it came to it, he was triggered. And again, the job been a bit too big for him. He couldn't. Yep. Now listen, he'd had a meeting just before that press conference in which Wilcox and him had a bit of, let's say, a heated debate, and he walked in with a face like thunder. So I think he was. So that was then that, and and that then blew up. And then on the Leeds game was on the Sunday. I didn't go to it because City were playing Chelsea at home.
I was there
in
the away end. We actually played all right, which was surprising that it blew up after.
Yeah, and then afterwards, the sort of basically. I remember TalkSport talked to me about it. It's basically 3 words. The 4 words you are very 4 words, you are very smart, but because it was about the Wilcox thing, that was the story. That's all you needed. So then it was developed on the Sunday. That's when he said all that stuff about sporting director has to do his job, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And when I was driving back from,
I'm the manager.
Yes, even though it's not my name, you're misinformed. So when I was driving back from the City Chelsea game, I got wind that he could be sacked the next day. So I did that story, and yeah, he was sacked the next day. And it's interesting. I don't know if you notice. I don't know how much you would read into this necessarily, but he's not done anything since, has he, Amorim? I don't know if it's going to be a big. You know what I mean? Like,
really interesting.
No, the fan base have picked up on that, and and kind of called it out. There's no statement. Yeah. So I've seen that around. So no, that's very interesting. Brilliant work, Jamie. I have to give that to you in terms of the questioning, because not all reporters do that.
Yeah, my ears just picked up. I couldn't believe he was saying on Christmas Eve. I could not believe he was saying, "I now, realise I'm not going to get this money." I was thinking that is a check. Something's happened here. What, etc. etc.
Yeah.
And well, tell you what, just a very quick aside. In a previous Manchester United media world, let's say when Van Gaal was the manager, even Mourinho, I might not have got even a second follow-up question. Never mind the third follow-up question, which was the one
that's
I
true.
mentioned.
Yeah.
They were very quiet.
What was the old press lady's name?
Karen Shotbolt.
Yeah, because she was sharp. She would shut you guys down after one question, right? You don't normally get follow-ups.
Yeah, because she was, and even after she was sort of Sir Alex Ferguson's. She was. How can I say it? She was part of his club, and you know what he was like, control everything. So I respect all that, but what I'm saying is it's just just for anyone who's half interested. If you're a journalist, sometimes it's the follow-up question. Yes. The second one or the third one that maybe gets one question. It's very difficult because it's that the person you're asking, if you don't want to answer, they could bat it away. But if you're hitting the right sort of if it's a sort of what do you call it, a sore spot, there's a way of sort of anyway. So yeah, you're just probing them. So I mean,
it's good stuff.
On the one hand, I like that they went for who they thought was the sort of upcoming star of European football. I get, I think that's good. The head coach. But I just feel, could they have said to, how are you going to react? Before they gave him the job, could they have? Maybe they did, but if they did, what did they ask him, Ruben? What are you going to do if like we say to you don't want this player, or if your 3-4-3 isn't working and we want you to change it? Now maybe they did have those conversations. He said to them, "I'm not changing my 3-4-3," and they accepted that. But actually, the way it was played out, they didn't accept it because in the end, Wilcox, I think, talked to him, Amorim.
Yeah,
and sort of said, "Look, I think you need to change this 3-4-3 because it's not going particularly well." But again. Why employ a guy who's got this 3-4-3 all the time and saying, "I'm never going to change, not even the Pope"?
Yeah.
Yes. Why do it? If you're not, if it's not going to work, it's not the United way, is it? I think. Listen, you should be able to go. Ferguson did this. Ferguson sometimes set up, really, really sort of compact in Europe. But the point is, you have an underlying thing, don't you, United, where Ferguson, Busby, whoever, it's like glamorous football. You're the supporters, you tell me. You don't want to lose, of course you don't. But if you're going to lose, you're going to lose going down, fighting. Well, that was amazing.
Play well.
Rather than,
exactly.
We lost 1-0 and
pass the ball forward, risk. Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly,
and that's just to end on Michael Carrick, because he seems to have brought those vibes back for us fans in 3 games. So, yeah, what do you make of it? Have INEOS landed on their feet with this appointment?
That's a good question. What I like about on the one hand, he's the anti-Amorim in press conferences, so he's very cool. He doesn't want to give anything away to people like me. But in the way in which he does it, I think it's just naturally him. It's not like he's uptight and I don't know what to say. It's just like he's very, very calm. He's actually a natural in a way.
Like he played in midfield, right? He played like that.
Exactly. But as you're saying, the actual football's good, isn't it? That game on Sunday, 3-2. Listen, I'm lucky enough to have been there, stayed in the last 12, 13 years. That was like my first time. I love reporting on that. That finish, Sesko, Stretford end, comes on as a sub. It was amazing, wasn't it? Yeah.
Top corner. Yeah.
If you must have loved that, right? You must have loved it.
I got scared because I had a feeling of like the 2008 team in terms of the way we were playing the football. It was a little bit of a throwback, right? The way we were passing the ball in midfield. Yeah.
Well, look at my match report. There's a couple of sentences where I say there was like an easy flow to your. It was like very buccaneering. You just pass. It was sort of like really, really. Like basically what you just said, like the old United way. And I sort of said in the report, it's not been seen or seen too rarely in recent years. Basically, sort of since Ferguson left, really. Solskjaer was probably the closest, right, in terms of buccaneering style. So. it's always fascinating to report on Manchester United because it's just a sort of story machine and all the rest of it. But I'm really interested. How many games are left now?
Constant.
14, is it, under him? 15?
Yeah, I think
14,
so.
I'm really
yeah.
interested in
Unfortunately.
how he goes. But yeah, but I don't think Carrick is going to die wondering. I think he's going to strike a balance between not being silly, but I think his thing is, he's brought up under Ferguson. He's gonna be an attacking dude. Yes, and I think fans, whether he succeeds or not, and when I say succeed, top 4, top 5 would be success, or not. I don't think. I think at the end of it, fans are still gonna love him as they did the player sort of thing.
Final question on United: if he delivers Champions League, does he get the perm job?
That's such a good question. I love it. Listen, if he's playing, if he's doing what we're talking about, continue to play, Manchester United, Ferguson, Busby, George Best, Rooney, Ronaldo stuff. You know what I'm sort of saying, sort of like attacking. Why not? Now people will say, "Oh yeah, but look, it happened with Solskjaer." Yeah, but just because it happened with one person doesn't mean to say the next person who's had success at interim is going to necessarily go the same way. And actually, Solskjaer did finish second, third. I know that's not good enough at United, but third, second, and then last Europa League final, he wasn't that far away from being pretty successful United. I would give it to him. Why would you not? Listen, I think their first choice is Tuchel still, but will Tuchel go there if? I don't know. You've got Wilcox basically telling Thomas Tuchel's won the Champions League,
exactly,
Bundesliga.
That's it.
I don't know. I would give it to Carrick. I'm not a fan, right? But for me, and I know it's easier for me to say because I'm not a fan, but say you give it to Carrick because he has finished top 4, and then, I don't know, by mid-October next season he's sacked. So what? You've given the guy a go because he's earned it.
True.
It didn't work, but it's not the end of the world. You could get in you could get in the sort of a Tony Pulis-like manager who looks better on paper, but he's actually bought. You know what I mean? It's a sport, isn't it? After all, the fans are there. The fans aren't there, as we all know, for the sort of bottom line of commercial success. They just want to be entertained because they pay a lot of money and they love the place. They go there because it's alive, it's visceral. Yes, it's life affirming. That's why if you love football or sport, then that's what was great about this game on Sunday. The Cesco winner game. It was life affirming. I sat there and thought, wow, that was ace. Yeah, and I'm not even a fan. If you're a fan, you must be.
Yeah.
Buzzing it. And if Carrick's doing that,
been buzzing
I don't know, you tell me, but surely fans would want more of that from him.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of the fan base would buy into him being perm if he gets top 4. And, even if we were just missing out on top 4 or top 5, there still might be enough room for him to get it because of the way he's playing the football. And also, he's got the players on side, which I think is massive compared to what happened with Ruben, right? We talked about it with Kobe Mainoo. He seems to be getting more out of Cesco than, Ruben was as well. So, yeah, I mean, even to your point of if you did fire him in October because it went wrong next season, Thomas Tuchel might be just sitting on a beach anyway.
Right, Jamie. So the one thing that I didn't know until the weekend, and probably many other sports fans wouldn't know, is that you write novels. I've got your latest novel here. Tell us about your novel writing.
Yeah, so that's called Adventures in Love. That is a tale of sort of acid house era, 1990. 2 17-year-olds fall in love in Lancaster. They find out who is the local Mr. Big supplying, because it's like the start of the acid house era, who is supplying, let's say, the dancing pills to the area. They decide to steal
Ebenezer.
1,000. Yeah, decide to steal 1,000 of these and actually sell them at the last ever legal warehouse party, and off the spoils of selling them, run away to Ibiza and live forever. Now, this party that they're going to sell them at actually happened, and I went to it. It was in Leeds, even though these warehouse parties were all in Blackburn. It was in
I was
Leeds.
going to say, it sounded like a
Leeds.
first-hand experience.
I've made it all up, but the party was in Gildersleeve, and actually at the time, as the sort of back of the book says, that they arrested everyone. In the real life party, they arrested everyone. 136 people were inside, of which I was one. And at the time, it was the biggest mass arrest in British history. been released as all. There's no
Wow.
charges. But I use that as a sort of focal point of this story.
Oh.
So yes, listen, it's teenage romance, partying, dancing, escape to the sun forever. What's not to love, eh?
Love it.
90s. Can't go wrong.
Yeah, I'm going to Greece in May, so I'll definitely be sitting back on the sun lounger reading this. So yeah, we'll put a link in the
Thank you.
description on where people can buy it
Thank
as
you so
well.
much.
And yeah, it's like I said, it's would never have known this unless I bumped into you. So the magic of the universe, hey. So yeah, thanks very much. Hopefully we'll have you on in the future as well. It'd be great to have you as a friend. You
Definitely.
are a friend of the pod now
Please.
officially. We'll send you a t-shirt.
Right.
So thanks for tuning in to this episode, and we'll catch you on the next one.